With 3 to 4 yards, you can make this easy one-size-fits-all dress that screams rich auntie vibes even as a beginner. Welcome to the channel, guys. On this channel, I share beginner-friendly sewing tutorials and fashion-related content. So if you're yet to subscribe to the channel, please do so. And without delay, let's get creative. Backstage, I already drafted my basic bodice pattern, which stops just few inches below the hip line. Note, this pattern doesn't contain any allowance. This line here represents my shoulder line, which also doubles as my starting line. Would be making modifications to this pattern. If you do not know how to draft a basic bodice pattern, I'll be leaving a link in the description box so you can go back and watch that video. So this is the back neck width. The back neck width is 3 inches and the neck depth is 1 inch. Now I'll be using this pattern to cut both the front and the back necklines, but then the front neckline is going to have some modification later on in the video. Now this is my shoulder to shoulder at 7 inches, as you can see there, and whatever I have extra and going onwards would be my sleeve length. Okay, so you'll see how that plays out later on. As you can see, that is my armhole. So I measured from my shoulder to my chest line at 9 inches. I also measured from my shoulder to my bust line at 11 inches. I also measured from my shoulder to my under bust line at 14 inches. I also measured my shoulder to my waistline at 16 inches, and finally I measured from my shoulder to my hip line at 25 inches. The remaining excess you see below the hip line, I just decided to leave it on the pattern. So right now we'll be determining our sleeves opening, how wide we want our sleeve to be. Okay, so I want my sleeve to extend below the armhole line. Okay, I want my sleeve to be as wide as 12 inches. Okay, so I'm just going to indicate that 12-inch mark there, and I'm going to also use the help of the armhole line to mark where 12 inches falls on that area, and I'm going to be squaring that up on the side of this basic bodice pattern. So this would be my sleeves opening. In other words, since this pattern is going to be cut on fold, that means my sleeve would be as wide as 24 inches. Hold up, this is super easy, okay? What I'm basically doing is that the top part is going to be shaped as a bubu, while the lower part is going to be shaped as a kaftan. So I'm going to be giving this pattern enough allowance. I want this kaftan to be very bogus, okay? So I'm going to be adding 4 inches to the sides of this pattern, okay? So at the sleeve opening line, where we indicated the sleeve opening, I'm going to mark 4 inches there. At the waistline, I'm going to be adding 4 inches as well. And I'm also going to be adding 4 inches to the hip line as well. Now I'll be using my ruler and curved ruler to connect all the points I've marked. So at this sharp angle of the sleeve, I'm going to be giving it a blend with my curved ruler so it has a better transition. At the under bust, I do not want the ruffles or gathers to just fall directly under the under bust, okay? Because I fear that with constant movement, it may begin to come up, okay? So I want to go down from the under bust by 1 inch so that it also accommodates my stitching allowance. So I'm going to come down from the under bust by 1 inch. So from this point, we'll be creating a curve that runs from this point to the edge of the new waistline, okay? So I'm going to be creating this curve with the help of my curved ruler. I want you to take note of something. You see from the shoulder line, whatever you have beyond the shoulder line upwards constitutes part of your sleeve. I don't know if you can see this. You can see that I have 8 inches here. That means I'm also going to add extra sleeve, okay, including this 8 inches. This 8 inches already forms part of my sleeve, okay? So like if I put a paper underneath, you'll be seeing how I'll just work this out, but I just want you to know that that 8 inches left also constitutes part of your sleeve. All right, we're going to be cutting out this pattern, so just watch how I cut it out. So now we are going to be creating the sleeve, all right? So from the shoulder, I'm going to place a paper underneath this pattern, and the paper already has a sellotape, so I'm just going to use that tape to join this pattern paper together. And right now we're going to be measuring from the top of the shoulder up to 21 inches. Okay, why I just want to mark 21 inches first is that is the normal length I would like my sleeve to stop at. But this particular sleeve would be extra long, okay, because we're going to be creating a bubble effect at the end of the day. So I want this sleeve to be extra long. So at the end of the day, I'm going to be adding extra 10 inches to that 21 inches, thereby making the total length of the sleeve to be 31 inches. Okay, so I'm going to measure from the shoulder, I'm going to measure 31 inches, and below the pattern, I'm going to measure 23 inches, because that line where the sellotape joins both papers together at the lower end of the sleeve opening is already marked at 8 inches. Okay, so the remaining 23 inches will make up 31 inches. So I'm going to mark 23 inches at the lower part of the sleeve opening, and then I'm going to be connecting this point with a ruler. Now this new extension constitutes part of my sleeve, and I would go on and cut it out. I would be creating a variation between the front and the back necklines, because the front neckline is going to be deeper. So from the shoulder line, I'm going to be going down by 6 inches, and I'm going to be connecting that point to the already existing neckline. So I'll be cutting out the back neckline for now, but I wouldn't be cutting out the front neckline until I want to transfer the pattern to the fabric. At this point, I'll be ruling lines on this pattern paper. If you're an ardent follower of this channel, you would be familiar with this by now. All what I'm doing is I'm going to roll lines in order for me to slash and spread this pattern later on. Okay, so in no particular fashion, I will just be rolling these lines. I'll just leave a gap, roll another line, leave a gap, roll another line till I am satisfied. Okay, and later on I'm going to slash up through these lines and then spread it out on the fabric. Before you start slashing through the lines, you want to measure the area below the underbust. This would help you when you want to make ruffles or when you want to make pleats below the underbust, okay? So you have to pen down what you marked so you don't forget it. What I got was 11.75 inches. Ensure you remember this figure, okay? This will help you when you want to go on and make your pleats. Having done this, you can begin slashing through the lines. This is the fabric I'll be using to make the dress. What I have here is 4 yards of fabric. If you're kind of petite, you can make use of 3 yards of fabric. But if you know you have height or you're on the big side, you want to make use of 4 yards of fabric. Now, I would advise you when making this dress, you want to make use of a fabric that is stiff or that puffs, something like a brocade or mikado, something that has weight, okay? I kind of had second thoughts when I started using this fabric, because this fabric is kind of light and it sleeps, but then this is the fabric I had and I just wanted to make a tutorial for you guys. But you can do better when you're choosing the type of fabric to use, okay? I have placed the pattern on the fabric, but because my fabric is not so wide, I'm going to be taking off the sleeve because I'll be cutting this separately. I will be transferring my sleeve pattern to my fabric. So I folded my fabric into 4 because I'm going to be cutting both sleeves together. Alright, so I decided to make this sleeve longer because I feel like 31 inches wouldn't give me like that kind of bubble I want at the sleeve. So I decided to make this longer. So as the pattern is this way, I have a total length of 23 inches, but I'll be adding 8 inches to the length of the sleeve in order to make it 31 inches full. All right, so I just placed the tape at the beginning of the sleeve pattern, and I'm going to measure down to 31 inches, and I'll be cutting this out later on. So if I factor in the 8 inches I had after my shoulder to shoulder measurement, it means that I would have a total length of 39 inches as my sleeve length after adding 31 inches. I would be notching this part on fold so I can get the midsection. I have placed the upper part of the pattern on the fabric, and this fabric is on fold, as you can see. You would also spread out your pattern this way. The amount of space you leave in between the slashes determines how full the area under the underbust will be. So right now I'm going to be taping down this fabric so that it doesn't shift while I cut it out. Before I cut out our fabric, I'll be outlining the bottom part of the pattern, only that I'll be adding 0.5 inch as stitching allowance. Now I'll cut out the fabric. At the sleeve area, I'll be leaving 0.5 inch as stitching allowance. That is what I'll use to attach the sleeves. I'll be notching the midsection and the area in between the slashes. This would help you when you're trying to make your pleats or your gathers. So just ensure you notch each area so you won't find it difficult when you're trying to make the pleats. Backstage, I have used the back pattern to cut out the front part of the fabric this way. I will be making alterations to the neckline of the front pattern using my pattern paper as a guide. So I'll just cut out the neckline. And when I open up the fabric, this is how the front part of the fabric looks like. I really wish you could see this on a full scale, but this is how it looks like. And this is how the back looks like. You're going to have a very, very wide piece of fabric. Okay, this is how it looks like. And if I place my fabric shoulder to shoulder, this is what I'm going to have. This is how my neckline is going to look like. For the lower part of the dress, I have placed my fabric on fold, as you can see, and I have placed the pattern on the fabric. I would be giving 0.5 inch at the top there. Let me just call that the waistline. Okay, I'll just be adding 0.5 inch there for stitching allowance, and I'll be using this outline, and I'll be using this pattern to cut out the long part of the skirt. Okay, so from the under bust area, I'm going to measure down to the length of the skirt. I want the length of the skirt to be around 48 inches. So from that part where I chalked down, I would measure 48 inches to the bottom of the dress, and I would be cutting it out this way. Now I'll be using the upper part of the pattern paper to determine where I would be giving notches to the skirt. As it is, I'll be adding facing to the neckline. Okay, so I'm going to fold the fabric this way, and I have this fabric that I have hemmed the base and the sides already. So I'm going to be folding this fabric, and I'm going to be placing it underneath the fabric. All right, so now that it's placed under the fabric, I'll be cutting out the neckline on the facing this way. Okay, I'm going to do this for the front and the back necklines. So if I open up the fabric, this is what I will have. So I'm going to place the facing on top of the fabric. I'm just going to align the neckline together, and I'll be taking it to the sewing machine, and I'm going to stitch that neckline just the way the facing is as well. I'm also going to do the same thing for the back neckline, and I'll come back and show you the results. And if you've watched this far, please give the video a like. If you're yet to subscribe to the channel, please hit on the subscribe button so you can stay updated whenever I post new tutorials. And if you feel very generous, please leave a lovely comment. I have attached my facing, as you can see, and this is how it looks like at the back. I gave it a light press backstage because I do not want the bumps on the fabric to turn out flat. As for the back, this is how it looks like. I also attached the facing just like I did to the front piece, and this is how it looks like. I also gave it a light pressing as well. I thought of using fabric glue to hold down the facing, but that would require me using a hot iron, and I do not want the bumpy pattern on the fabric to go flat. As you can see, it's already looking flat after ironing, so I'll later on just tag this. Now this is the front part of the skirt, and that area you see there is the area below the underbust. As you can see, I have notched several areas which will help me when I try to make my pleats. So this is the upper part of the dress, and I have also notched this in several areas below as I showed you earlier. So right now I'm just arranging this because I want to identify the midsection. Okay, so this is the pattern on a larger scale. I just want you to see how this looks like. So now I'm going to identify the mid section of this fabric, of the upper part of the fabric, and I'm going to place that mid section I notched on the midsection of the skirt. You see the reason why I said you should notch all these areas. I'm just going to pin that there, and I will begin making pleats. So just watch how I make these pleats. I will also be pinning the ends of the skirt and the blouse together on both sides. So I'll begin pleating. I'm not really going to tell you how you should pleat yours. You could pleat yours, you could make gathers, you could do anything at this part. The goal is to make sure this part under the underbust conforms to the 11.75 inches we measured. Okay, so this is the way I'm just going to make my own pleats. I'm going to bring in the two notches outside the midsection to the midsection and create like a box pleat. That will be the first pleat I would make, and subsequently I would begin making knife pleats. All knife pleats would face the same direction. Okay, so that's just how I'll make my pleats. So the video is explanatory, just watch how I do this. I have finished pleating the bodice on the skirt, and this is how it looks like at the front. I will take it to the sewing machine to stitch it down. I have also pleated the bodice of the back piece on the back section of the skirt as well, and I have taken it to the sewing machine and stitched the area below the underbust. So now the upper part of the bodice is now joined to the lower part of the skirt. As it is, I will place the back piece on the front piece, right sides facing each other. I would align the shoulders together and pin them down, and later on I will be taking this to the sewing machine to attach the shoulders together. So I have this piece of fabric that measures 16 inches by 4.5 inches. So I'll be folding it over and sewing the base as well as the sides. After stitching it, this is what I have, and I'll turn this inside out. Backstage, I made 4 pieces of this, and I'll give this a light press. I have given these pieces a right press and I'll set it aside for the next stage. So I've brought back the dress and I'm going to measure the area below the underbust, and what I have there is 23.5 inches, as you can see. So now we're marking the midsection of the area below the underbust, and I'll just mark that there. And after this, I'm going to be marking 7 inches outside this line I ruled. Okay, so that's 7 inches on both sides. If you add both of them, that would give you 14 inches, and 14 inches would represent the front division of my waistline. My waistline is 28 inches. 28 divided by 2 is 14 inches. So I'm going to mark that on both sides, 7 inches on both sides outside the line at the midsection. Okay, and it is at that point that I will be placing the strips that we made earlier. Okay, so I'm just going to place the strips on either of those lines. At the back, I will be doing the same thing I did at the front. I would identify the midpoints of the dress and then measure 7 inches outside that line and then attach the straps. These straps will be used in tying the dress so that it will be fitted at the waistline. And backstage, I took it to the sewing machine, sewed on top of it so as to secure it. As you can see, this is the part I'll be using for the sleeve, and I have gone ahead to hem the base of the fabric, and at the top here I have also notched the mid section of this fabric. I have opened up the dress this way in order to expose the shoulder joining. Now I will be placing the midsection of the sleeve at the shoulder joining, okay, and I will begin pinning the this part of the sleeve at the shoulder area. I'll do this for both sides of the sleeve and I'll run a stitch down afterwards. I'm done attaching the sleeve to the dress, and this is what I have. I have flipped the dress to the wrong side and I'll begin pinning strategic areas in the dress. The aim is to close up the dress, okay? So I'll just pin all those areas and then I would stitch it right from the sleeves up to the hem of the dress. And after this, we're practically done with the sewing part. We'll move on to the next part, as you would see. I'm going to be tacking the sleeves like in so many places in order to create the bubble effect on the sleeve. So as you can see here, I have already used a chalk to indicate the midsection of the sleeve, and I would be doing same here. So right now I'm just going to get the mid part of the sleeve, and once I do that, I'll use a chalk to mark out the midsection. So I'll be making use of a matching thread, something that's just going to match with the color of this fabric, and I'll be making use of a needle. As you can see, I have threaded my needle. This mannequin represents my shoulder as it is on my body. I am going to begin tacking this. You're going to tack it in such a way that the threads aren't so visible. I just want to secure this very firmly. Take note, you are going to make sure you remember the pattern you used in tacking this area so that you can replicate it on this other area so that everything looks uniform. So I'm done making the bubble effect, so I'm going to replicate it on this other part here. So I have finished tacking this other area, and this is how it looks like. And guys, we've come to the end of the tutorial. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you are yet subscribed to the channel, click on the subscribe button and join this family. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. I'll be attending to them, and feel free to leave your lovely comments. Till I see you in the next one. Bye for now.